Captain John Harper walked across the metal floor of the bridge. His boots made soft sounds on the polished surface. Around him, dozens of screens showed information about the ship. Numbers and letters moved across the displays. The UES Titan was ready for war. The ship was huge. It stretched over 2 kilometers from front to back. That was longer than 20 football fields placed end to end. The outside was covered in dark metal that looked like it could eat light. Weapons stuck out from every side like the spines of some giant space creature. Harper had been captain for 3 years. He was 42 years old and had gray hair at his temples. He had fought in the colony wars. He had seen friends die when alien ships attacked human settlements. He had watched cities burn from space. Now he commanded the most powerful ship humans had ever built. The door to the bridge opened. Commander Lisa Grant walked in. She carried a tablet computer in her hands. Her face looked serious. She was the head of Earth's military intelligence. She knew secrets that could start wars or end them. "Sir, we have a problem," she said. Her voice was calm, but Harper could hear the worry underneath. "What is it now?" Harper asked. He turned away from the main screen to look at her. "The Zephyrians are moving again. They launched another attack fleet 6 hours ago. Target is New Denver colony." Harper felt his jaw tighten. New Denver was home to 50,000 people. Farmers, miners, families trying to make a life on a world far from Earth. The Zephyrians had attacked human colonies before. They always said it was to teach humans their place in the galaxy. "How many ships?" Harper asked. 12 heavy cruisers, 40 smaller vessels. Admiral Krex Vorthak is commanding them personally. Harper knew that name. Vorthak had led the attack on the Kepler settlement 3 years ago. 2,000 people had died. The alien admiral liked to make examples of human colonies. He thought, humans were nothing more than clever animals who needed to be kept in line. How long until they reached New Denver? 8 hours at their current speed. Our regular fleet is 3 weeks away. The colony defense platforms won't last 10 minutes against that kind of firepower. Harper nodded. This was why the Titan existed. For 50 years, humans had been building smaller ships, fast ships, cheap ships, but the aliens always had bigger fleets. They always had more ships, so Earth had tried a different approach. Instead of building 100 small ships, they built one massive one. Instead of using the same weapons everyone else used, they invented new ones. The Titan was the result of 50 years of human anger and human cleverness. "Get me Pete Johnson," Harper said. A few minutes later, engineer Pete Johnson appeared on the main screen. He was down in the engine room. Behind him, Harper could see the massive machines that powered the ship. They glowed with blue light. The sound of their humming came through the speakers. "Captain," Johnson said, "we're ready down here. All systems are green. The quantum fold drive is charged and stable." "What about the primary weapons?" "Locked and loaded, sir. We've got 24 kinetic penetrators ready to fire. Each one is carrying a stabilized micro-singularity. The reality anchor system is online. We can lock down space-time in a 50-kilometer radius." Harper smiled. Those words would have sounded like magic to someone from 100 years ago. But humans had learned to make magic real. They had to. The aliens gave them no choice. The quantum fold drive was not just for traveling faster than light. It was also part of the ship's weapon system. It could bend space around the ship. It could create bubbles where the normal rules of physics didn't apply. Inside those bubbles, the Titan could do things that should have been impossible. "How long to reach New Denver?" Harper asked. 30 minutes, sir. We'll get there 6 hours before the Zephyrians do." Harper turned to his crew. They were all looking at him. Some were young, some were old. All of them had reasons to hate the Yao. Aliens. All of them had lost friends or family in the colony wars. "Listen up," Harper said. His voice carried across the bridge. "Today we make history. Today we show the galaxy that humans are not prey animals. We are not slaves. We are not going to roll over and let them burn our worlds." The crew members nodded. Some smiled. Others looked grim. All of them were ready. "The Zephyrians think they can do whatever they want to us," Harper continued. "They think we're weak. They think our ships are toys. They think our weapons are harmless. Today we prove them wrong. Lieutenant Commander Rick Davis was sitting at the weapons control station. He was 28 years old and had been fighting aliens since he was 18. His home planet had been glassed by the Carillion fleet when he was a child. He survived because he was visiting his grandmother on Earth. "Sir," Davis said, "what are our rules of engagement?" Harper thought about that question. The old rules said to try to avoid civilian casualties. The old rules said to offer surrender terms. The old rules said to fight with honor. But the aliens had never followed those rules. They killed human civilians without thinking twice. They never offered surrender terms to human ships. They had no honor. "New rules," Harper said. "Any ship that fires on human colonies or human civilians is a legitimate target. Any ship that refuses to withdraw when ordered is a legitimate target. We're not here to play games." The bridge was quiet for a moment. Then Davis nodded. "Understood, sir." Harper looked at the main screen. It showed the star map. New Denver was a small dot of light in the darkness. The Zephyrian fleet was moving toward it like a pack of wolves. "Dr. Amy Foster," Harper said into his communication device. "Yes, sir," came the reply. Dr. Foster was the ship's chief scientist. She was the person who had figured out how to make the impossible weapons work. "Are you ready for field testing?" "As I'll. Ready as we'll ever be, Captain. The exotic matter containment is stable. The reality manipulation systems are online. We're about to find out if 50 years of theory actually works in practice." Harper smiled. He had faith in his crew. He had faith in human engineering. Most of all, he had faith in human stubbornness. When humans decided they were not going to give up, amazing things happened. "All stations prepare for quantum fold jump," Harper announced. The bridge lights dimmed. The humming from the engines got louder. Harper could feel the ship gathering power like a giant animal preparing to pounce. "Fold drive charged," Johnson reported from the engine room. "Navigation locked on New Denver system," reported Navigator Sarah Kim. "All weapon systems ready," reported Davis. Harper looked at the main screen one more time. Somewhere out there, the Zephyrian fleet was traveling toward New Denver. Admiral Vorthak probably thought this would be another easy victory, another chance to show humans their place. He was about to learn how wrong he was. "Execute jump," Harper ordered. The stars outside the viewports began to stretch. Space twisted around the ship like taffy. The normal rules of physics bent and broke. The Titan disappeared from Earth's orbit, leaving only a brief ripple in space-time. They were going to war, and the galaxy was about to discover that humans had learned some very dangerous lessons during their 50 years of being kicked around by alien bullies. The age of human submission was over. The age of human dominance was about to begin, and it was going to start with the complete destruction of Admiral Vorthak's fleet. Admiral Krex Vorthak stood on the command deck of his flagship. The ship was called the Endless Glory. It was a beautiful vessel that looked like it had grown instead of being built. Its hull curved in smooth lines. Organic patterns covered its surface. The Zephyrians had been building ships like this for thousands of years. Around him, 11 other heavy cruisers moved through space. Behind them came 40 smaller ships. Each one was sleek and deadly. Together they carried enough firepower to destroy a planet. Vorthak had used fleets like this to crush dozens of human colonies. "Sir," his communications officer said, "we are receiving a transmission from New Denver colony." "Put it on the main screen," Vorthak ordered. The face of an older human woman appeared. She had gray hair and worry lines around her eyes. Vorthak recognized her from the intelligence files. Mayor Kate Sullivan. She had been running New Denver for 8 years. "Admiral Vorthak," she said. Her voice was steady, but Vorthak could smell her fear. Humans always smelled like fear when they saw his ships. "I demand to know why you are approaching our system with a battle fleet." Vorthak laughed. The sound was like metal scraping against stone. His species had evolved from hunters. Their voices were made to frighten prey. "Mayor Sullivan," he said, "your colony has failed to pay the proper tribute to the Galactic Federation. Your mining operations have exceeded the quotas set for your species. You must be reminded of your place. That was a lie, of course. The humans had paid their tribute on time. Their mining operations were well within the legal limits. But Vorthak needed a reason to attack. The other species in the galaxy expected him to keep the humans in line. We have paid everything we owe, Sullivan said. Our records show full compliance with all Federation regulations. Your records are wrong, Vorthak replied. Prepare for immediate surrender. Evacuate all military personnel from your defense platforms. Shut down your planetary shields. If you comply, only half your population will be relocated to work camps. Sullivan's face went pale. You cannot do this. We are a peaceful colony. We have done nothing wrong. You exist, Vorthak said. That is crime enough. You have 1 hour to comply. He cut the transmission. Around him, his officers made sounds of approval. They enjoyed watching humans beg. It reminded them why the Zephyrians were the dominant species in this part of the galaxy. Sir, his sensor officer said, the humans are powering up their defense platforms. Vorthak looked at the tactical display. New Denver had 6 orbital defense platforms. Each one mounted plasma cannons and missile launchers. Against merchant ships or pirates they might be effective. Against his fleet they were just targets. Let them try, Vorthak said. It will make the lesson more memorable. The Zephyrian fleet moved into attack formation. The heavy cruisers formed, a circle around the planet. The smaller ships spread out to prevent any human vessels from escaping. It was a formation Vorthak had used many times before. Sir, the sensor officer said again. His voice sounded strange. I am detecting something unusual. What is it? There is a distortion in space approximately 50,000 kilometers from the planet. It appears to be growing. Vorthak looked at his screens. There was indeed something strange happening. Space itself seemed to be bending. The stars behind the distortion looked twisted. It was like looking through water. Is it a weapon? He asked. Unknown, sir. The energy readings are unlike anything in our databases. The distortion grew larger. It began to spin. The spinning got faster and faster until it looked like a whirlpool made of starlight. Then something began to emerge from the center. It was a ship, but it was unlike any ship Vorthak had ever seen. It was massive. It was longer than 3 of his heavy cruisers placed end to end. Its hull was black as the void between stars. Weapons covered every surface. Some of them looked familiar. Others looked like nothing in any military database. Sir, the communications officer said, we are receiving a transmission from the unknown vessel. Put it on screen. A human face appeared. The man was middle-aged with gray hair at his temples. He wore a uniform that Vorthak did not recognize. Behind him, the human could see a bridge filled with advanced equipment. I am Captain John Harper of the UES Titan, the human said. His voice was calm. Too calm. You will withdraw your fleet from this system immediately. Vorthak laughed again. 1 ship against 52? You humans truly are insane. This is your only warning, Harper said. Leave now or face the consequences. The only consequence will be your death, Vorthak replied. But first tell me how you built such a large ship. Our intelligence said humans could barely manage cruiser-sized vessels. There are many things your intelligence got wrong, Harper said. Last chance, Admiral. Withdraw or be destroyed. Vorthak ended the transmission. Around him, his officers were making nervous sounds. The human ship was certainly impressive, but size was not everything. The Zephyrians had faced large ships before. All ships, Vorthak broadcast to his fleet. Target, the human vessel. Fire when ready. 52 ships opened fire at the same time. Plasma bolts crossed the space between the fleets in seconds. The beams were bright enough to be seen from the planet's surface. They struck the human ship's hull with enough energy to vaporize a mountain. Nothing happened. The plasma beams simply vanished when they hit the black hull. They did not explode. They did not cause any visible damage. They just disappeared like they had never existed. Sir, the weapons officer said, our shots had no effect. The human ship appears to have some kind of energy absorption system. Vorthak felt the first touch of real concern. He had never seen defensive technology like that. Even the most advanced shields would show some sign of the impact. This ship had absorbed the combined firepower of his entire fleet without even a flicker. "Fire again," he ordered. "Full intensity, all weapons." The Zephyrian fleet fired again. This time they used their most powerful weapons. Particle beams that could cut through moon-sized asteroids. Fusion missiles that could crack continents. Graviton torpedoes that could collapse matter at the molecular level. All of it struck the human ship. All of it vanished without effect. Then the human ship began to do something impossible. Space around the Zephyrian fleet began to change. It became thick and sticky like honey. Vorthak's ships suddenly found themselves unable to maneuver. Their engines ran at full power, but they could not change course or speed. "Sir," the navigation officer reported, "we are trapped in some kind of spatial distortion. We cannot move." "That is impossible," Vorthak said. "Nothing can lock space itself." "Tell that to the humans," the officer replied. On the main screen, the human battleship was turning toward them. It moved slowly, but with obvious purpose. As it turned, Vorthak could see more of its weapons. Some looked like conventional projectile launchers. Others defied description. They seemed to bend light around themselves. The human ship came to a stop about 10,000 kilometers away, close enough that Vorthak could see details of its construction. The hull was not smooth like Zephyrian ships. It was covered in angles and edges. It looked like it had been designed by someone who understood that beauty was less important than function. "Attention, Zephyrian fleet," came Harper's voice over the communication system. "You are now trapped in reality anchors. These devices have locked the local space-time continuum into a fixed configuration. You cannot move. You cannot escape. You cannot use your faster-than-light drives." Vorthak tried to respond but found that his communication systems were not working properly. The spatial distortion was interfering with everything. "You came here to terrorize innocent civilians," Harper continued. "You came here to destroy homes and families. You came here because you thought humans were weak. You were wrong." The human ship's main weapons began to move. They tracked across the Zephyrian fleet like the eyes of a predator selecting its prey. "What you are about to witness," Harper said, "is the end of an era. The age of alien dominance over humanity is over. Today begins the age of consequences." Vorthak felt something he had not experienced in decades. True fear, the kind of fear that made his species' ancestors hide in deep caves when the great hunters walked the night. The human ship fired its first shot. It was not a beam of energy. It was not a missile. It was something solid moving at an impossible speed. Vorthak's sensors registered it as a small metal projectile. But when it struck the cruiser Glorious Victory, the results were anything but small. The ship simply vanished. One moment it was there. The next moment it was gone. In its place was a brief flash of light and an expanding cloud of debris. "Impossible," Vorthak whispered. The human ship fired again. Another cruiser disappeared, then another. Each shot was precise. Each shot was final. There were no explosions, no dramatic bursts of flame. The ship simply ceased to exist. Vorthak realized that he was witnessing the birth of a new kind of warfare. The humans had not built a bigger ship. They had built a ship that used physics as a weapon. They had found a way to make the universe itself their ally. His fleet was trapped. His weapons were useless. His ships were being destroyed one by an enemy that should not have been able to exist. For the first time in his long military career, Admiral Krex Vorthak considered the possibility that he might not survive the day. Captain Harper watched the alien fleet struggle against the reality anchors. The Zephyrian ships were trying everything they could to escape. Their engines glowed brighter as they pushed more power through them. Their weapons fired wildly in all directions. Nothing worked. They were trapped like flies in amber. "Sir," Lieutenant Commander Rick Davis said from the weapons station, "we have destroyed 4 enemy cruisers, 8 heavy cruisers, and 36 smaller vessels remain." Harper nodded. He felt no satisfaction in the destruction. These were not glorious victories. They were executions. But the aliens had brought this on themselves. They had spent decades terrorizing human colonies. They had killed thousands of innocent people. Today the bill came due. Chief Engineer Miller, Harper said into his communication device, "How are the reality anchors holding?" "Solid as a rock, Captain," came Tony Miller's voice from the engine room. "The spatial distortion is stable across a 50-kilometer radius. Nothing in that bubble can move faster than walking speed. Their faster-than-light drives are completely useless." Harper looked at the main screen. The alien ships were beautiful in their own way. They looked like living creatures made of metal and light. Too bad their crews used them to murder civilians. "Navigator Kim, are we picking up any distress signals?" Sarah Kim checked her instruments. "Yes, sir. The aliens are broadcasting on all frequencies. They are calling for help from other Zephyrian fleets. They are also sending data about our ship back to their homeworld." "Let them," Harper said. "I want the galaxy to know what happened here." The Titan's weapons turned toward another group of enemy ships. These were the smaller vessels, frigates and destroyers that usually hunted merchant ships and transport vessels. They had been used to attack refugee convoys fleeing from burning colonies. "Target the destroyer group on the port side," Harper ordered. "Targeting," Davis replied. His fingers moved across the weapon controls. "Sir, should we offer them a chance to surrender?" Harper thought about that. The old human fleet had always offered surrender terms. It was the honorable thing to do. But these aliens had never offered surrender to human civilians. They had never shown mercy to human children. "No," Harper said finally. They had their chance to leave. They chose to stay and fight. The Titan fired again. This time the weapon was different. Instead of a single projectile, it fired a spread of smaller rounds. Each one was no bigger than a baseball, but each one contained a tiny black hole stabilized by exotic matter fields. The first round struck a Zephyrian destroyer. The ship simply folded in on itself. The metal hull crumpled like paper. In seconds, the entire vessel collapsed into a point of light. Then it was gone. The second round missed its target but hit an asteroid floating nearby. The space rock began to shrink. It got smaller and smaller until it vanished completely. Then there was a flash of energy as the black hole evaporated and released all the matter it had consumed. The third round struck another destroyer. This time the effect was different. Instead of collapsing, the ship began to stretch. It got longer and thinner until it looked like a piece of metal spaghetti. Then it snapped and broke apart into a million pieces. "Sir, Operations Specialist," Janet Cruz said, "we are receiving a transmission from the Zephyrian flagship." "Put it on screen," Harper ordered. Admiral Vorthak appeared on the main display. The alien looked different now. His confident bearing was gone. His eyes were wide with fear. Behind him, Harper could see Zephyrian crew members running around in panic. "Captain Harper," Vorthak said, "I request immediate negotiations. We are prepared to discuss terms." "The time for negotiations was before you came here to murder innocent people," Harper replied. "You had your chance to leave peacefully." "You cannot destroy an entire fleet," Vorthak said. "The Galactic Federation will not allow it. There will be consequences." Harper laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. "Admiral, you are about to become a lesson that the galaxy will never forget. Your fleet came here to terrorize civilians. Instead, you found something that terrorizes you." "What are you?" Vorthak asked. "What kind of monsters have humans become?" "We became what we needed to become to survive," Harper said. "For 50 years, species like yours have hunted us. You have burned our worlds. You have killed our families. You have treated us like animals. Today, that ends." Harper cut the transmission. Around him, his crew worked with quiet efficiency. They had trained for this moment for years. Everyone knew their job. Everyone understood what was at stake. "Dr. Foster," Harper said, "are you ready for the next phase?" Dr. Amy Foster's voice came through the communication system from the science lab. "Yes, Captain. The exotic matter containment is stable. We can begin space-time manipulation on a larger scale." "Do it." What happened next would be talked about in military academies for centuries. The Titan began to alter the very fabric of reality around the enemy fleet. Space itself became a weapon. The first effect was gravitational. The human ship created artificial gravity wells that pulled the alien vessels in different directions. Ships that had been flying in formation suddenly found themselves being dragged apart by invisible forces. The second effect was temporal. The Titan slowed down time around some of the enemy ships while speeding it up around others. From the aliens' perspective, some of their vessels began moving in slow motion while others zipped around at impossible speeds. The third effect was dimensional. The human ship opened tiny holes in space-time itself. These holes led to other places, other times. Some of the alien ships were sucked into these holes and vanished completely. No one knew where they went. No one would ever see them again. "Sir," Davis reported, "the enemy fleet is completely disorganized. They are firing on each other. Their formation has collapsed." Harper could see it on the tactical display. The once proud Zephyrian fleet was now a scattered mess of confused and panicked ships. Some were trying to ram each other by accident. Others were firing at shadows created by the space-time distortions. "Finish them," Harper ordered. The Titan's main weapons fired repeatedly. Each shot was carefully aimed. Each shot destroyed another enemy vessel. But these were not random killings. Harper was sending a message. The most dangerous ships died first. The ships that had attacked the most human colonies. The ships with the worst records for civilian casualties. Admiral Vorthak's flagship was saved for last. When only the endless glory remained, Harper opened a communication channel again. "Admiral," he said, "you are the last one left. Your fleet is gone. Your crew is about to die. Do you have any final words?" Vorthak looked like he had aged 10 years in the past hour. His confident bearing was completely gone. He looked like a broken old man. "Why?" he asked. "Why show mercy to no one?" "Because you showed mercy to no one," Harper replied. "Because when you attacked human colonies, you killed everyone you could find. Men, women, children, old people, sick people. You showed no mercy then. You get no mercy now. The galaxy will never accept this," Vorthak said. "Other species will unite against you. You cannot fight everyone." "Watch us," Harper said. The Titan fired its final shot. The projectile struck the endless glory and activated on impact. The alien flagship folded in on itself like origami being crushed by a giant hand. In seconds, the most powerful ship in the Zephyrian fleet was reduced to scattered atoms. The battle was over. 52 alien ships had entered the New Denver system. None of them would ever leave. "Sir," Cruz reported, "we are receiving messages from the planet. Mayor Sullivan is requesting permission to thank us personally." "Tell her she is welcome," Harper said. "But remind her that this is just the beginning. Word of what happened here will spread. Other alien fleets will come. We need to be ready." Harper looked at the debris field that had once been the Zephyrian attack fleet. 50 years of planning had led to this moment. 50 years of human anger and human genius had created the weapons that made it possible. The galaxy had learned an important lesson today. Humans were no longer prey, they were no longer victims, they had become something new, something dangerous. And they were just getting started. The news traveled fast, faster than any ship could fly. The destruction of Admiral Vorthak's fleet was broadcast across the galaxy within hours. Every major news network carried the story. Every government received the recordings. Every military leader watched the battle footage with growing alarm. On the Carillion homeworld, Fleet Admiral Zara Thindok sat in her command center. Around her, dozens of screens showed the same impossible images over and over again. A single human ship destroying 52 Zephyrian vessels. Weapons that bent reality itself. Technology that should not have existed. "Run the analysis again," she ordered her science officer. Commander Brix Nolden looked up from his instruments. He was the best military analyst in the Carillion fleet. He had studied every known weapon system in the galaxy. But what he was seeing made no sense. "Ma'am," he said, "the human ship appears to be using exotic matter manipulation. They have somehow learned to control space-time itself. Our physics models say this should be impossible." Admiral Thindak was 8 feet tall with blue skin and 6 arms. Her species had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. They had the most advanced military in known space. Their ships were faster and stronger than anyone else's. But the human vessel was something entirely new. How many ships would we need to destroy it, she asked. I do not know, Nolden admitted. Their defensive systems absorb the combined firepower of an entire Zephyrian battle group. Their weapons can apparently destroy matter at the molecular level. Our conventional tactics would be useless. Admiral Thindak felt something she had not experienced in decades. Uncertainty. The Corellians had always been the dominant military power because they understood warfare better than anyone else. But this was not warfare as they knew it. This was something completely different. Meanwhile on Earth, President Helen Chase was preparing to address the galaxy. She stood in the Oval Office looking out at the gardens. In a few minutes, she would give the most important speech in human history. Her Chief of Staff, Director Robert Kane, entered the room. He carried a tablet computer with the latest intelligence. Reports. Madam President, he said, the reaction is exactly what we expected. Every major power is reviewing their policies toward humanity. The Andromedan Trade Consortium has already sent an apology for their past treatment of human merchants. President Chase nodded. She was 62 years old and had been in politics her entire adult life. She had seen Earth go from a backwater planet to a respected member of the galactic community. But she had also seen the limits of that respect. When alien fleets attacked human colonies, the galaxy did nothing. When human merchants were cheated, no one cared. When human refugees fled burning worlds, they found closed borders everywhere. What about the military situation, she asked. Mixed, Kane replied. Some species are backing down, others are preparing for war. The hegemony of suns is mobilizing their combined fleets. Intelligence estimates they will have over 800 ships ready within the month. President Chase was not surprised. The hegemony was a coalition of 12 species that controlled the eastern arm of the galaxy. They had grown wealthy by exploiting weaker civilizations. They would not give up their power without a fight. Are we ready? She asked. Captain Thompson and the other ship commanders report full readiness. All 21 vessels are operational. The new weapon systems have been tested and approved. 21 ships. It sounded like so few compared to 800. But President Chase had seen what one human ship could do. The Titan had destroyed an entire enemy fleet without taking any damage. If the other ships were even half as effective, the numbers might not matter. She walked to her desk and activated the communication system. In moments, her face would appear on screens across the galaxy. Billions of beings would hear her words. What she said next would determine whether humanity had a future among the stars, or whether they would face extinction. Citizens of the galaxy, she began. I speak to you today from Earth, the homeworld of humanity. Yesterday, one of our ships engaged a Zephyrian attack fleet at New Denver Colony. The enemy fleet was completely destroyed. No human lives were lost. She paused, letting that sink in. For decades, alien attacks on human colonies had resulted in thousands of casualties. This time was different. For too long, humanity has been treated as a second-class species. Our merchants have been cheated. Our colonies have been attacked. Our refugees have been turned away. We have been told that this is simply the natural order of things, that stronger species have the right to dominate weaker ones. President Chase's voice grew stronger. She was speaking not just to the galaxy's leaders, but to every being who had ever been oppressed by those in power. Today that changes. Humanity will no longer accept the status quo. We will defend our colonies. We will protect our citizens. We will travel freely among the stars. Any species that wishes to test our resolve is welcome to try. She ended the transmission. Around the galaxy, the reaction was immediate. Some species expressed outrage. Others offered friendship. Most simply watched and waited to see what would happen next. The response came 3 days later. A joint statement from the hegemony of suns. They declared that humanity had violated galactic law by attacking a Federation fleet. They demanded that Earth surrender the crew of the Titan for trial. They gave humanity 1 week to comply. President Chase read the statement in her office. Beside her stood Defense Secretary Mark Williams and Admiral Janet Stone, the head of Earth's Space Navy. "They really think we will just hand over Captain Harper and his crew?" Williams asked. "They are used to getting their way," Admiral Stone replied. "For centuries they have made demands and weaker species have obeyed. They cannot imagine that anyone would dare to refuse them." President Chase looked at the star charts on her wall. The hegemony controlled hundreds of systems. They had vast fleets and unlimited resources. By any traditional measure, humanity was hopelessly outmatched, but humanity did not fight traditional wars. "Send a reply," she ordered. "Tell them that Captain Harper and his crew are heroes who defended innocent civilians from unprovoked attack. Tell them that if they want them, they can come and take them." The message was sent. The response was swift. The hegemony announced that they would launch a punitive expedition against Earth. 800 ships would gather at the Kepler 442 system. From there, they would advance on humanity's homeworld and teach the upstart species a lesson they would never forget. Captain Jake Thompson received his orders aboard the UES Valkyrie. He was 38 years old and had been fighting aliens since he was 20. His ship was one of the 20 vessels that would accompany the Titan into battle. Like the flagship, the Valkyrie was armed with weapons that could reshape reality itself. "All ships report ready," his communications officer announced. Thompson looked at the tactical display. 21 human ships against 800 enemy vessels. It was the kind of odds that would have meant certain death for any conventional fleet. But these were not conventional ships. Dr. Carol White, Earth's chief xenobiologist, provided the final intelligence briefing. She appeared on screens throughout the human fleet. "Remember," she said, "the hegemony species have never faced weapons like ours. Their psychology is based on traditional concepts of warfare. They expect battles to follow predictable patterns. When we break those patterns, they will become confused and demoralized." Thompson nodded. He had studied the enemy psychology reports. The hegemony commanders were experienced and competent, but their experience was with normal space combat. They had never faced an enemy that could use physics as a weapon. "All ships," came Admiral Stone's voice over the fleet communication system. "Prepare for jump to Kepler 442. Today we show the galaxy that humanity's strength comes not from the size of our fleets but from the power of our ideas." The human fleet activated their quantum-fold drives. Space twisted around them like cloth being wrung out. In moments, they would arrive at the largest space battle in galactic history. 800 ships waited for them. The combined might of 12 species, weapons that could shatter moons, shields that could absorb the energy of stars. Against them came 21 human vessels, ships that had been built not just to fight, but to rewrite the very rules of war. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when human engineering met impossible odds. The Kepler 442 system had never seen so many ships in one place. 800 vessels from 12 different species filled the space around the fourth planet. Each ship was a masterpiece of alien engineering. The combined firepower could have destroyed a dozen worlds. Supreme Commander Vex Korath stood on the bridge of the hegemony flagship Eternal Dominion. He was a Thrakari, a species that looked like giant insects made of living metal. His 4 eyes could see across multiple spectrums of light. His mind could process 1,000 streams of information at once. Around him, the greatest fleet in galactic history waited for the humans to arrive. Korath had been planning this battle for weeks. He had studied every piece of data about the human ship called Titan. He had watched the recordings of the Zephyrian fleet's destruction dozens of times. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "long-range sensors detect spatial distortions approaching the system. The humans are coming." Korath felt his excitement rising. He had commanded fleets for over a century. He had conquered dozens of star systems, but he had never faced an enemy with technology like this. It would be the greatest test of his military genius. "All ships," he broadcast to the fleet, "prepare for battle. Today we show these upstart humans what real military power looks like." The spatial distortions grew stronger. Space itself began to bend and twist. Then the human ships appeared. 21 vessels emerged from the quantum fold portals. They were all different sizes and shapes, but they shared the same black hulls and angular designs. At their center was the massive form of the Titan, its weapons already tracking toward the enemy fleet. So few, Korath muttered. Did they really think 21 ships could defeat 800? But as he watched, something strange began to happen. The human ships did not form a traditional battle line. Instead, they spread out in a complex, three-dimensional pattern. Each ship positioned itself at a specific point in space like pieces on a giant chessboard. Captain Lisa Park, commanding the UES Ragnarok, checked her instruments one final time. Her ship was the newest in the human fleet. It carried experimental weapons that had never been tested in real combat. But today would change that. All stations report ready, her executive officer announced. Good, Park replied. Remember, we are not here to destroy every enemy ship. We are here to break their will to fight. Sometimes the threat of destruction is more powerful than destruction itself. The hegemony fleet began to move. 800 ships advanced in perfect formation. Their commanders had planned this carefully. They would surround the human vessels and destroy them with overwhelming firepower. But the humans were ready for them. Captain Thompson aboard the Valkyrie was the first to fire. His ship launched what looked like a simple missile, but as it flew toward the enemy fleet, it began to split apart. One missile became 10, 10 became 100, 100 became 1,000. Each submunition contained a micro-black hole stabilized by exotic matter. When they reached the hegemony formation, they activated simultaneously. Suddenly, 1,000 tiny gravity wells appeared throughout the enemy fleet. The effect was instant chaos. Ships that had been flying in perfect formation were suddenly pulled in different directions by invisible forces. Vessels collided with each other. Weapons fired wildly as gunners lost their targets. The carefully planned attack dissolved into confusion. What is happening? Korath demanded. Unknown, sir, his science officer replied. The humans appear to have created multiple gravitational anomalies throughout our formation. Our ships are being pulled off course. Korath had never seen anything like it. His fleet looked like leaves caught in a whirlwind. Centuries of military tradition and discipline meant nothing when the laws of physics themselves had been turned into weapons. All ships, he broadcast, ignore the gravitational effects. Focus fire on the human vessels. Some of his commanders managed to follow orders. Dozens of ships fired at the nearest human vessel, the UES Valkyrie. Energy beams and missiles crossed space in a deadly display of firepower. None of them hit their target. Captain Thompson had activated his ship's reality manipulation system. Space around the Valkyrie became twisted and folded. The enemy weapons struck areas where space itself had been compressed. The attacks were absorbed and redirected harmlessly into empty void. Their weapons cannot touch us, Thompson reported to the fleet. Beginning counterattack. The human ships opened fire as one, but they did not aim at the enemy vessels. Instead, they fired at the star itself. 21 exotic matter projectiles struck the Kepler 442 star simultaneously. The stellar core began to pulse with increased energy. Radiation levels throughout the system started to climb. The star's magnetic field began to fluctuate wildly. Sir, the hegemony science officer reported in panic, the humans have destabilized our star. Solar radiation is increasing rapidly. Korath felt his confidence cracking. What does that mean? It means our ships are no longer designed for this environment. Our shields and electronics are calibrated for normal stellar radiation. If the levels continue to rise, our systems will begin to fail. Already, Korath could see the effects. Ships throughout his fleet were reporting power fluctuations. Navigation systems were giving false readings. Weapons were losing accuracy as their targeting computers struggled with the increased interference. But the human ships seemed unaffected. They moved through the radiation storm as if nothing had changed. Their weapons fired with perfect accuracy. Their systems operated flawlessly. How are they immune? Korath asked. Unknown, sir. Their technology appears to be specifically designed for high radiation environments. What Korath did not know was that human ships had been built from the beginning to operate in hostile conditions. Earth's engineers had assumed they would always be outnumbered and outgunned, so they had designed their vessels to fight in environments that would disable enemy ships. Captain Harper aboard the Titan watched the enemy fleet struggling against the radiation storm. Some ships were already losing power. Others were firing, randomly as their computers malfunctioned. The perfect formation had become a scattered mob of confused and frightened vessels. "Sir," Lieutenant Commander Davis reported, "over 200 enemy ships are showing signs of system failure. Shall we begin targeted strikes?" "Not yet," Harper replied. "Give them a chance to surrender." Harper opened a communication channel to the entire hegemony fleet. His voice carried across 800 ships. "Attention hegemony forces," he said. "You came here to destroy our homeworld. You came here to enslave our people. You came here because you thought we were weak. You were wrong." On the Eternal Dominion, Korath listened with growing dread. "Your fleet is trapped in a radiation storm of our creation," Harper continued. "Your ships are failing. Your weapons are useless. You have one chance to survive this day. Withdraw from human space immediately. Never return. Never threaten human worlds again. This is your only warning," Harper concluded. "Comply or be destroyed." Korath looked around his bridge. His officers were staring at their failing instruments. Reports of system failures were coming in from across the fleet. Ships that had been the pride of their species were now helpless in the radiation storm. "Sir," his communications officer said, "we are receiving surrender requests from multiple vessels. The Vakari squadron is requesting permission to withdraw. The Zelton cruiser group reports complete system failure." Korath realized that his perfect plan had become a disaster. His overwhelming numerical advantage meant nothing when his ships could not fight effectively. The humans had turned the battlefield itself into their ally. "All ships," he broadcast with a heavy heart, "withdraw from the system. Do not engage the human vessels." One by one, the hegemony ships began to retreat. Those that could still move activated their faster-than-light drives and fled. Those that could not were left behind, helpless in the radiation storm. In the end, only a handful of human ships had fired their weapons. The rest had simply watched as 800 enemy vessels fled in panic. The largest fleet in galactic history had been defeated by 21 ships and the power of human engineering. As the last enemy vessel disappeared into hyperspace, Captain Harper made a final broadcast. This one was transmitted to every inhabited world in the galaxy. "Citizens of the galaxy," he said, "today marks the end of an era. The age of might makes right is over. The age of consequence has begun. Any species that preys on the innocent will face the wrath of humanity. We do not seek to conquer. We seek only to ensure that the strong can no longer terrorize the weak." The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humanity was no longer prey. They had become the apex predators of space, and they had done it not through brute force but through superior intelligence and the willingness to think beyond conventional limits. The stars would never be the same.